She was just another maid with a mop, until she answered a call in perfect Dutch. No one noticed her before, not when she scrubbed conference carpets at 2 a.m., not when she emptied trash bins while CEOs closed million-dollar deals. But that morning, something changed. Her phone buzzed, a quiet hum in her apron pocket. She knew the rules. No personal calls during shift, especially not in the lobby. But the number on the screen froze her in place. 31, Amsterdam. Vrije Universiteit. Her 7th attempt. Her last chance. She stepped behind a marble column, heart pounding. "Goedemiddag, met Maya Thompson," she said, and halfway across the lobby, a billionaire stopped walking. Alexander Graves wasn't the kind of man who stopped for janitors. He built empires. He restructured hotels. He didn't have time for noise. But that voice, that fluency, that calm precision, that confidence, it didn't belong to a hotel maid. It belonged to someone the world had overlooked for far too long. And within seconds, everything, her life, his company, and the fate of an entire system, it was about to change. Boston, 7:42 a.m. The scent of freshly mopped stone lingered in the air, white vinegar and lemon. The marble tiles in the main lobby of the Sterling Crest Hotel shimmered beneath the chandelier light like fragments of memory. Clean, flawless, invisible. Maya Thompson, 29, knelt at the foot of that world. Mop in hand, head bowed low, she was part of the lobby, just as silent as the janitor's cart beside her, just as nameless as the gray uniform stretched across her chest. Then, a gentle vibration stirred in the pocket of her apron. She glanced at the screen. +31. Netherlands. Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Her heart skipped. 7th time. The last 6 had ended in silence, not because she lacked the skill, but because of cold, practiced rejections like, "Your profile does not align with our current direction." This one might be her last chance. Her eyes swept the lobby. A group of Chinese executives had just entered. 3 managers stood chatting near the bar. No one noticed her. As always, Maya slipped behind one of the towering marble columns, a fleeting escape from the gaze of hotel cameras, a sliver of privacy reserved for the one thing that still made her believe she had worth. "One moment," she whispered, pleading with time itself to pause, and she answered. "Maya Thompson?" A man's voice, precise Dutch, deep, slow, warm, and dignified. "Ja, met Maya Thompson. Goedemiddag, Professor Van Dahl." The words rose from her lips like muscle memory, effortless, fluent, lived in. For those brief, borrowed minutes, Maya was no longer a hotel maid. She was a scholar, a graduate applicant, a woman who had hoped, had been let down, yet still chased a dream the world said was too far for someone who scrubbed floors for a living. But when she finally lifted her head, time did stop. Alexander Graves, the legendary CEO who once rescued the Sterling Crest Empire from collapse, was standing right in front of her. Beside him, Linda Park, Maya's direct supervisor, wore a look that could burn through any broken rule. Graves said nothing. He simply looked at Maya, long and quiet, as if he had just heard a voice buried for 6 years, a voice he never believed could be real. But now, he couldn't unhear it, and from that moment on, everything began to shift. "Ik bel je later terug." "Thank you well, Professor." Maya whispered, her hand trembling slightly as she ended the call. She shoved the phone back into her apron pocket, but it was already too late. "Thompson, office, now!" Linda Park's voice rang out behind her. Cold. Sharp as a blade, the hallway leading to the management offices felt darker and quieter than usual. Maya walked slowly, each step weighed down with the burden of 6 years of being overlooked. Eyes followed her colleagues, glancing just long enough to say they knew. She picked up the phone. In the lobby, in front of the CEO, the office door shut behind her with a dry, final thud. Linda didn't offer her a seat. Didn't need to circle around. I don't care what language that was. French, German, Martian. Linda leaned in, voice tightened with restrained fury. Rules are rules. No phone use during working hours. And you did it right in front of Mr. Graves. You embarrassed me. Maya didn't protest. No explanation would be accepted here. Starting next week, you're reassigned to the convention center shift. Post-events only. No overtime. No bonus. You should be grateful I'm not firing you. Maya said nothing. But inside, something quietly shattered. That night, in the small room she shared with 2 immigrant nurses, Maya sat still beneath the pale yellow light. On the wall, her master's degree in linguistics from NYU hung slightly crooked, its frame chipped and faded. She stared at the line bearing her name. Trying to remember, she still had worth. She still had a voice. Even if the world was trying to make her forget. 6 years, scrubbing toilets, mopping hallways, shampooing carpets after conferences. 6 years, submitting transfer requests, right here in this very hotel. No replies, no acknowledgments, no one even bothered to read them. Maya used to ask herself, maybe I'm just not good enough. Then she'd ask again. Or maybe they never planned to see me at all? But something changed yesterday. The way Alexander Graves, the CEO, looked at her wasn't like the looks she had endured for the past 6 years. It wasn't disdain. It wasn't pity. It was a surprise. As if he had just discovered a diamond tossed into a dark corner. The next morning, Maya arrived earlier than usual. Uniform pressed, hair pulled into a neat ponytail. Her old shoes were polished to a quiet shine. She didn't know what was coming, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel small. As she passed the front desk, Jennifer called out, Maya Thompson, HR wants to see you right away. Maya stood silently in the executive elevator, a place she hadn't once stepped into in all 6 years. Surrounded by tailored suits, no one looked her way. As always, the doors opened. An HR rep escorted her straight into the CEO's office. Alexander Graves sat behind his desk, eyes fixed on her as if he were uncovering a truth that had been hidden for far too long. Dutch, right? He asked. Yes. I have a master's degree in applied linguistics from NYU. I speak 6 languages. Graves flipped through her file. Graduated with honors. International research experience. And 6 years cleaning rooms, Maya replied quietly. I submitted 47 transfer requests. No one responded. Mr. Mercer and Miss Park both rejected them. Graves nodded. I suspected internal favoritism. 3 months ago, I commissioned an independent investigation, but it wasn't until yesterday that I truly saw it. He leaned back. Tomorrow we're hosting a major conference. Netherlands and China. I need someone fluent in both language and culture. Maya asked softly, You want me to clean their rooms? Graves shook his head. I want you to be the international relations coordinator, $5,000 a week, starting today. She froze. Why me? Graves replied, Because it's clear to me now. Someone has been working very hard to erase people like you from the map. He extended his hand. Let's start over. Welcome, Maya. 1 hour later, Maya stepped out of the elevator on the 27th floor, a gold access badge on her chest. Executive clearance. It felt like waking up into a dream. The hallway was quiet, carpeted in velvet, a different universe from the one where she used to mop the floors. She crossed paths with Linda Park. Thompson, what are you doing here? No uniform? Maya answered calmly. CEO Graves appointed me as the International Conference Coordinator. Linda blinked. You don't have the qualifications. Master's from NYU, 6 languages. My resume's been here for 6 years, along with 12 transfer requests you never reviewed. Linda was speechless. Maya walked on. At the HR office, Maya met Rachel Kim, the new recruitment analyst. Rachel said softly, Ms. Maya, I actually forwarded your file once, but Mr. Mercer dismissed it, said, don't waste time. Maya understood clearly. She wasn't forgotten. She had been deliberately kept out. That afternoon, while reviewing documents for the conference, Maya froze. The Chinese translation was disastrously inaccurate. Robotic phrasing, mangled idioms, even borderline offensive undertones. She took a red pen and marked every flaw, stunned that this was a $50,000 job. Graves walked in and spotted the document. What do you see? A disaster. If we send this, the Chinese delegates will walk out. This shows a total lack of cultural literacy. Graves nodded slowly. Daniel Mercer claimed he hired an expert. Maya pointed at the glaring errors. This person isn't qualified. Graves stared at her. Translator's name, Ashley Mercer. Maya paused. His niece? Graves nodded. That evening, with internal access granted by Rachel, Maya dug deeper. She discovered every recent translation contract had gone to AM Translations LLC, a company owned by Ashley Mercer. A fraud scheme wrapped in a cloak of authority. And they never expected. Maya would be the one to expose it. The next morning, Maya appeared in a sleek blazer, her badge reading International Relations Coordinator glittering under the crystal lights. For the first time in 6 years, she wasn't a cleaning staff member. She ran the conference seamlessly. Dutch with the Rotterdam delegation. Flawless Mandarin for the Shanghai meeting agenda. Natural. Composed. As if she had always belonged here. By midday, she crossed paths with Daniel Mercer. Ms. Thompson, I must admit, impressive. Maya responded without flinching. Funny how no one noticed I spoke Mandarin for 6 years, even though it's listed on my employee file. Mercer gave a tight smile. And Dutch, too. Very helpful today. Maya looked him in the eye. And Ashley Mercer, the contract translator, is your niece, correct? An external vendor, Mercer said flatly. For $50,000? On a translation with 38 mistakes and 3 diplomatic missteps? Mercer fell silent. Moments later, Maya walked into Graves' office. She placed an iPad on the desk. The screen displayed the annotated translation. Then a file, 5 years of translation contract records, was pulled by Rachel. Graves skimmed through it, his expression darkening. Ashley received nearly $300,000 in 18 months, all approved by Daniel Mercer. And that certification from Peking University? They've never issued one to her. He didn't say more, but his eyes said everything. Action was coming. That afternoon, Graves called an emergency board meeting on the 30th floor. Every senior executive attended, including Linda Park and Daniel Mercer. Maya sat at the conference table, no longer pouring coffee, now the key witness. Graves opened firmly. We've uncovered signs of serious favoritism in hiring and vendor contracting. He turned to Maya. Ms. Thompson, please present your findings. Maya stood, her voice steady. I've worked here 6 years. Submitted 47 department transfer requests. I hold a master's degree, speak 6 languages, and received no response. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of dollars were funneled to the COO's niece's company, despite poor quality work. She presented the evidence. An abnormally high rejection rate for employees of color. multiple critical translation errors, a pattern of positions handed to relatives, nearly $300,000 spent on flawed services. The room fell silent. Linda went pale. Mercer didn't dare look up. Graves concluded, "Mercer and Park are suspended pending investigation. We will initiate a full audit of the system." He turned to Maya. "Ms. Thompson will continue coordinating the conference and will temporarily oversee the internal review team." The next morning, the Sterling Crest's grand ballroom was packed. Executives, board members, international guests. The tension in the air was thick, like a silent courtroom. Linda Park sat in the third row, ashen. Daniel Mercer kept checking his watch, sweat forming on his brow. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., Alexander Graves stepped onto the stage. By his side, Maya Thompson, dressed in a sharp blazer, her silver badge read, "Interim Compliance Officer." Graves didn't need a microphone. He spoke loudly and clearly. "Today, we confront the truth." The screen lit up with data. 63% of qualified minority applicants were rejected. 87% of outsourced contracts went to known associates. Multilingual staff had the highest resignation rate. Over $300,000 paid for substandard translation work. Not a sound in the hall. Graves looked across the audience. "We've verified. Many contract recipients lacked credentials. For example, Ashley Mercer, paid over $50,000 in 1 year, was entirely unqualified." Then he nodded toward Maya. She stepped up to the podium. Didn't look at Mercer, didn't look at Linda. She looked to the back of the room, where the gray uniforms sat. Quiet, just like their presence had always been. "I used to be one of you," she began. "I used to mop floors at midnight while international summits took place overhead. I was passed over again and again, even though my file said, Masters from NYU, 6 languages. She paused. Her voice softened. "I'm not standing here to claim justice for myself. I'm standing here to say there are voices being buried. Talents are being hidden, people being made invisible, simply because they don't carry the right last name, or their skin isn't the right color. We need a system that sees people before it sees connections." The first applause came from the back row. Maintenance workers, housekeepers, kitchen staff. They stood, clapping. Some wiped their eyes. Then the middle rows joined in. A few younger executives bowed their heads. Even the international guests, though they didn't understand every word, felt something true, and clapped along. Graves returned to the podium. His voice was firm. "Daniel Mercer, suspended. Linda Park, terminated. An independent audit begins today." No one clapped. They didn't need to, because change had already begun. Graves turned to Maya. "And I'm pleased to announce Maya Thompson, once overlooked and dismissed, is now officially appointed as the Director of Internal Affairs and Multilingual Relations for the Sterling Crest Group." The ballroom erupted. Applause, standing ovation, soft, tearful gasps. Maya didn't force a smile. She just stood tall, steady, radiant in stillness. As she stepped off the stage, her eyes met Daniel Mercer's one last time, just as security escorted him to the exit. He hissed under his breath, "You won't last a month." Maya responded with a simple nod. No anger, no fear, nothing left to prove. Because she knew, in a month's time the invisible voices would begin to rise, and this time no one could silence them. She didn't speak. She just smiled. In her pocket, the recorder was still running, capturing every threat, every insult, every piece of evidence of what she had endured. That afternoon, from her office on the 28th floor overlooking downtown Boston, Maya wept. Not for the title, not for the salary, but for her mother's dream. A woman who spent her life cleaning rooms no one remembered. Finally fulfilled. 6 months later, Sterling Crest had transformed. The once silent hallways now echoed with Spanish, Mandarin, and Swahili, not just multilingual, but multi-human. Everyone was seen. Maya, now executive vice president, ran the Invisible Voices initiative from her new office on the 32nd floor. In the first strategic meeting of the year, she presented the results. 47 previously overlooked employees, reassigned 83%, were people of color or immigrants. Employee retention up 35%, outsourcing down 78%. Guest satisfaction among international clients up 42%. Sterling Crest ranked #1 in diversity in the entire industry. Graves nodded, pride glinting in his eyes. We didn't just change one life, we saved the soul of this organization. As for those who had buried the truth, Linda Park was reassigned to laundry services at a remote California branch, her first time in 20 years without authority. Daniel Mercer vanished from the industry. No company would hire him. Rumors whispered he was working night shifts at a rundown motel in rural Arizona. Ashley Mercer was ordered to return every misappropriated dollar and complete an ethics course, funded by the Maya Thompson Foundation for Linguistic Justice. 1 week later, Maya received a letter from Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Professor Van Dahl invited her to be an honorary guest lecturer. He added a handwritten line. The academic world needs people like you, not for your degrees, but for your courage. Maya placed the letter beside her mother's photo, a woman who had spent her life mopping floors and never once heard her name spoken properly. The next day, Maya announced a new scholarship, Scholarships for the Unseen, for the children of hotel workers. The seed funding came from her own executive salary. The first recipient, Amira Santiago, daughter of a former co-worker, a girl who dreamed of managing a hotel one day. Amira hugged Maya and whispered, "You made me believe I'm allowed to dream too." Maya's story spread across newspapers, television, and was taught in classrooms at Harvard. But for Maya, the most important thing wasn't the headlines. It was the people who had once been forgotten, the dreams that had once been left behind, the voices that had once been treated as invisible. At the first Invisible Voices Symposium, the room was packed. What moved Maya most wasn't the attendance, it was the faces. Carlos Jimenez, after 12 silent years in maintenance, is now Southern Regional Facilities Manager. Aisha Bakari, once rejected for improper accent, now leads intercultural communication training. They had all once been Maya. She stepped onto the stage, paused for a breath. My mother used to say, "They may not call your name, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be heard." It was the quiet footsteps that taught me, silence does not mean invisibility, and justice doesn't begin with punishment. It begins when the system is rebuilt, so that everyone can finally be seen. That evening, on her way home, Maya passed by the old housing complex, the one she used to return to every night, carrying a degree no one cared to read. The same yellow light still glowed from the tiny window upstairs. She smiled and kept walking. A month later, she received a package from Amsterdam. Inside, a wooden map of the world, etched with the words, "No land is off limits if your voice is clear enough." Tucked beneath it, a letter from a Dutch student. "I almost dropped out, but because of your story, I applied again." At a press conference, a journalist asked, "What's the sweetest part of your success?" Maya smiled. "It's not the title, not the salary. It's the moment I see someone else dare to believe in themselves, because someone once believed in me." In a world where voices are often buried beneath power, Maya Thompson's story reminds us, one voice, spoken at the right moment, it can change an entire system. If this story moved you, leave a comment. And don't forget to follow the channel to help us share more stories. Stories of those once overlooked. Who went on to spark the biggest changes? Because talent is everywhere. Sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to see it.